So Daniel's doing some drive out. Daniel, what do you think of the trip so far?
Loving it. Beautiful drive. What a wonderful country. I love living in Canada. We are truly blessed.
That we are. It's been a hell of a ride. We conquered the rock. We finished the island from the top to the bottom. Did lots of documentary stuff and got lots of sponsors. And we're just going to keep it going. And let's just see what each province has to bring at us. And most importantly, we're looking forward to all the people that have already committed to this documentary.
Hey, listen guys, the law's changing. You know why we're here. It's time to get real. We've been to Queen's Park. We've done what we needed to do, but I don't think we're done yet. And I dare say, hot dogs is not going to end here. It may end in this building, but I'm going to tell you straight, we're not done. None of us in this room are done. We all need to get together because these places are important. The community deserves places like this where we can socialize and enjoy time together and have somebody come on a stage and entertain us all, because they're not going to let us do this in other places, and that's why these places are relevant. Medical patients need a place. The 420 community damn sure deserves a place in this country, and I'm here to tell you I've been at this game a long time, and I'm not about to quit yet, because we haven't won yet. We'll stop when we win, and people like all these people in this room are free for free choice. That's what I say. So I'd like to invite our guest here tonight. Jason, would you please come forward and inspire some people and tell it like it is.
Wow, how do you follow that? Thank you, my brother. Okay, do you guys all hear me okay out there? All right, I'm not going to be able to yell quite that loud. I haven't got the voice, just traveled from BC. I'm the president and CEO of the Cannabis Rights Coalition. Some of you guys might know us as the MMAR Coalition Against Repeal. We walk around with our crest, the older crest being here. Quite proudly. We've been across the country. People wear our crest everywhere, mainly because we put the federal government of Canada under a restraining order, being a federal injunction that's still in place. And this was done back in 2014 when they enacted the MMA or MMPR, which is now in force. Long story short, I'm not here to really talk about that tonight. I'm here to talk about these smoking laws. So I don't want to go too much into it, other than to give you the provenance, a little bit of history on our group and what our organization has done. First, we restrained the government. We put them on trial. We proved their lies about fire, mold, and organized crime was just that, lies and fabricated for the purpose of cornering supply and distribution in Canada, and basically to throw 36,000 patients and patient providers under the bus. We succeeded in that trial. We won Allard uncontested, so much so we're getting some of our money back. Many of us in this room here have worked very hard. We raised $300,000. Yeah! And honestly, we did that collectively. Mo and Linda here for Ontario raised the most. I believe it was $17,000 or $18,000. That's just one event. That's just that chilling on the ground, and that was just one fundraiser, one event, just an example of what we can do as a collective in a small region like this, and when we do it together, as my friend Michael has stated. And that's what the coalition was about, coming together. We were an ad hoc movement. We weren't a federal organization like we are now. We started ad hoc, came together and said, what are we going to do about this? They're lying. We're going to put them on trial. John Conroy stepped up and said, let's do it. So anyway, I'm steering off again. Sorry guys, it's been a long trip. Fact is, we ended up beating them uncontested, getting our money back. That's fabulous. We have to now prepare for two things: what they're doing now, what I'm going to get into with the smoking laws, but also what arises from Allard. So this campaign right now to go across Canada was to make everybody aware and alert to, one, what your right to liberty really is. You know, that issue, what we fought for in Allard was nothing more than your right to autonomy, to put into your body that which you wish, such as cannabis, as long as you're not hurting anybody else or yourself. Now in this case, they have to say fire, mold, and organized crime, because we had to be a danger to somebody to strip us of that right to grow a plant. Now with all that arbitrary, overbroad policy thrown under the bus, and now ruled unconstitutional twice, once in R.V. Smith, now ruled unconstitutional in Allard, that's the MMPR, we get the federal government's continued failed policy that we see here in Ontario, which is what I'd like to hear. I'm honestly came out here tonight to speak about this. These smoking laws, which we fear in BC, we fear for anybody. None of our brothers and sisters need this. And a smoking ban that would say medical patients can't come and smoke at this facility. Moreover, I guess I should say at a hospital, we have fought in BC to smoke in schools. So patients that are medically approved have that ability. Patients that need to go to court. If you have a federal license and that's your medicine, you should be able to use it like any other medicine. The federal government is proposing that any public enclosed area would be a bylaw infraction, and they could then boot you off property and not fear persecution for human rights violations. That's where I step in and where the Cannabis Rights Coalition steps in and says, ain't gonna happen on our watch. So as of July 1st, myself, I'll be in Peterborough speaking on stage, and I plan to be lighting a joint in a park in protest, you know, and I hope that you guys do. These laws were clearly written for smoking. They were written for carcinogens, for cancer-causing agents. They weren't written for cannabis. And they're trying to arbitrarily just slip in, you know, these medically prescribed. And what else is medically prescribed that you would need to light up? You know, this is something we need to ask ourselves and look at as well. So as I was reading through this bylaw, I emailed John Conroy, and I have an email here on my phone. And I emailed John and asked to get him some feedback on this bylaw. And I'm surprised when he said, sorry, Jason, we're kind of focused on getting back in front of Justice Phelan so we can deal with these guys on the 24th. So what that tells me, guys, is part one, we need to get ready for what's coming in August with Allard, okay, what arises from Allard. And part two, that even the attorneys are not necessarily focused on how bad this bylaw is going to impact patients. And the 420, down here, the 420 community, I like that. I like to say the cannabis culture, but the 420 community, anybody that uses cannabis, a promise to legalize, you don't decriminalize, you come up with Project Claudia, you sweep an entire friggin' metropolitan region, displacing thousands of patients, then you say you're gonna legalize, but you ban smoking in public places, public enclosures. It's very much a disgrace. In BC, there would be outcries. They've tried to come out, they've slapped injunctions. I'm not going to say on which facilities because of out of respect for that owner who asked me not to, but there is another vapor lounge in BC that the city of Vancouver slapped an injunction on, a very well-known vapor lounge. They slapped that injunction and said you can't operate simply because what we're doing here. Now there's a big problem with that. Give the fines where it's applicable. Even private members, organizations, see, the coalition thought we were going to be smart and we could take somewhere like Puff Dogs and say, no, this is a coalition sanctioned place, sign some paperwork and make it so that this is part of a nonprofit and every person that comes through the door has to be a member of that nonprofit organization. But the feds are getting smart and the provincial authorities. If you read that bylaw clearly, it makes it so only Veteran Affairs and only Veteran Affairs can get away with that sort of round the regulations if you have it. So with the attorney's advice, we've been told to go ahead and oppose and challenge. That's all we can do. So all I can say is to continue to protest these laws, to continue to gather. Most importantly, people that are running the facilities like this, we can't jump on anybody that shuts them down, but at the same time, we have to applaud those that stay open. The only way to change a law and to prove that it's arbitrary is to challenge it and to stay open. When they come in and they say this law is harming or this smoke is somehow harmful, they have to prove that in court. That's where I think our next fight is going to be. I mean, for the Cannabis Rights Coalition, it's about protecting our gardens and the plants, because without our plants, none of us would be here. We wouldn't have any cannabis. So that's going to remain our focus. Fighting any arbitrary laws, like this one that we're facing now, has got to be a focus as just part of the natural evolution to legalize in this country. If we're going to legalize, we can't tell people to go stand out in the street and that they can't smoke in a public park. When you're allowed to smoke cigarettes that kill you, and I made this argument actually on the way down here live on a live stream on a ferry, that I'm sitting here smoking while the guy beside me is killing himself, I'm healing myself, and you're not going to tell me to put this out. It's this kind of activism that I don't like to encourage, because a lot of people say, oh, well, that's why you guys never get anything done, because you're so against the government. It's like, look what the government just did to us.
Yeah.
The government just spent $1.2 million fighting medical marijuana patients in Canada. Only 36,000 of us, of an estimated 1 million. So they could supply and control the distribution of marijuana in this country. You guys got to look at what's going on around here. These bylaws that are going on right now, this is part of a larger agenda, I believe, to be tweaked. Project Claudia, I believe time will tell, was funded, and not just the Metropolitan Police. There's a lot more going on in this country. It's a war for supply and distribution. Nobody's seen medical patients rising up and restraining the federal government's monopoly plan. The monopoly isn't the licensed producers, as many people think when I say monopoly. The monopoly is a policy that allows a governing policy of 21 companies or 51 companies to have the sole proprietor of supply and distribution of cannabis in Canada. That's the problem. They won't even call it cannabis. They don't even get me started on that part, because there's no medical value to marijuana in this country. So the arbitrariness in all this, even as they sit there and they talk about smoking laws, you know, they have yet to show any inherent harm. Now, a bylaw is meant to protect the public. I don't know of any inherent harm in secondhand smoke from cannabis or marijuana or whatever we want to call it. So in this case, I believe the only potential stance that we can take, I know that the Cannabis Rights Coalition is looking to open vapor lounges after July 1st in opposition. Mostly it's going to be somewhere here in Ontario. You will see us pop open a vapor lounge with only our members. And that's only to see if we can try to dance around and say, look, no different, or those veterans are no different than us. I got AIDS, they got MS, that person's got friggin' whatever. We're all disabled. We shouldn't have to go overseas and fire a gun to be recognized as disabled.
Yeah.
Yeah.
With that said, guys, I want you to understand that Marijuana for Trump and other groups and our veterans we love very much, and I thank God that they've got coverage and that they've got abilities to get that access. That. Yeah, no, we need a lot more for veterans, but we need it for the cannabis culture. See, what we've done with veterans is because Canada, I like to call them the suits. The policymakers know. They know up there. The general public will not pick on the disabled in general, and they will not pick on the veterans. So they've covered cannabis for the veterans. They're trying to get it covered for us, which means that eventually you're going to be able to go to your local, dispensary, which will be licensed producer dispensary, and you'll be able to use your provincial medical card to get provincial coverage. And that's your future dispensaries. And those are patient access centers. They've had them planned. I talked about this on my show like 3 years ago when they first told us about it. Part of working on a big legal team is getting a lot of dirt on the government, especially when you put them on trial. So we learned of their plan to actually make these hubs all across every province. And these are the hubs that are to supply you guys. Part of those hubs is Shoppers Drug Mart. You've heard about that in the news. Part of the hubs is also the Liquor Bureau. They're in on this. So you guys got to look at legalization. How's that going to look? You might get to grow 3 to 6 plants, and then you might be able to buy at Shoppers Drug Mart. 3 to 6, it is scary. 3 to 6, no, 3 to 6 plants. I'm not just throwing these numbers out my ass. Honestly, I've been to a liberal private party. Like this is going on in air. My lawyers are going to be giving me shit if I'm saying anything that's not accurate. Most importantly, when you liberals insiders tell us, don't bother lobbying, don't spend your $20,000 lobbying trying to change what the liberal government's going to do, because they're going to cap and heavily restrict your victory in Allard. Yeah, you won. You embarrassed the federal government. Their organized crime expert got bombed on the stand, Officer Holquest. He didn't prove a single conviction for a medical marijuana grower. Their fire expert didn't prove a single conviction for a medical marijuana grow for a garden. So when it comes to the government's case, they bombed. That's what I mean by we won uncontested. So when you spank the government's butt, believe me, I know, they don't like it. People say don't take on Big Brother. It's for a reason. My friends, Big Brother is working with big business to take all of us on. And the sooner we recognize that and realize what the MMPR is really about, the real agenda of the federal government of Canada is to monopolize supply and distribution of cannabis in this country, and as well as to take over the culture that we built under 80 years of reefer madness. We built this culture, and we built it with our brothers and sisters going to jail, our brothers like Michael taking his chances. We have done this nonstop, and we'll continue to do this. And this is the risk that we have to take to make the change, and we're going to keep doing it. It took some people to stand up to the Big Brother once and say, we're going to restrain you and put you on trial because you're lying, and we did it. Mr. Conroy, I have an email here, has told me he's already preparing for August 24th so we can go back to court and say, Justice Phelan, this still ain't constitutional. Yeah. So again, just so everybody is clear, just in closing, The smoking bylaws is something we're not taking lightly. It's going to be applied. If we read the language carefully, they talk about a federal statute, which means that they really want to look to put this in every province and make it so that they can apply this. In my own opinion, this has nothing to do with smoking and everything to do with vapor lounges and wanting to shut us down and stop this. So yeah, with all that said, if there's any questions in the room, I've covered a lot of different topics and I actually cover a lot of things. There's also a $100 million lawsuit that I filed on behalf of y'all that if you got a federal license out there under the old MMAR, all 42,000 patients will get a payday. That is coming up. That's something else we filed. So yeah, I'm kind of jumping all over, but if there's any questions you guys have out there at all for the Cannabis Rights Coalition, for anything that we've been doing, feel free to fire them out because this is a chance that I'd much rather have a Q&A and open it up with the audience if there's any questions. Anybody? There, next, louder. Louder. Anybody, no questions?
Yeah. How much do you think it's going to cost us to go back to court this time?
Good question. Okay, now that I can actually hear myself in this microphone. Okay, so we spent $785,000 against their $1.2 million, and we still haven't paid Mr. Conroy off. I love the rumors out there. Oh, you're getting your money back, this, side, and everything. They don't look out how you get your money back. So, how you get your money back is first the Crown whines and cries, which is Canada. They go in front of the judge again and they whine and cry about how Justice Fielding was wrong and we shouldn't get our money back. And then it works on scheduling. Even when we win it, it just works on scheduling 1, 2, or 3. If we get scheduling 1, we get this much back. If we get scheduling 2, we get this much back. So we don't know how much money we're going to get back. All we know is how much the federal government has spent, $1.2 million fighting us. We spent $785,000 because I'm the client that hired them. I know from the bills. That's what we spent fighting them. And we won uncontested. Now, back to Michael, what would it take to do it again? My friends, any fight against the federal government of Canada is $250,000. No lawyer is going to take you serious unless you have 10 grand on the table talking real cash. Correct. So there's a lot of people out there talking and perpetrating and pretending, and they're not actually doing anything. And that's unfortunate for our culture while it's under fire. There are people trying to buy us out, and I always said this culture is not for sale, not after 80 years of lies and reefer madness, no way. But I'm starting to see that maybe some of us are for sale, because they bought out a lot of our supply and distribution routes. They bought out some of our higher activists. They didn't get me. I turned the check down, but they tried.
Cell didn't get me neither.
And for the activists that they did get, I feel sorry for the cannabis culture, but those activists have to look themselves in the mirror every night. I can go home and know that I've sat here and spoke with a group of my peers, my brothers and sisters who love this cannabis plant, and know that in a democracy, in a place that's free, we should be able to use a plant and come together in a free and fair way.
Against them now, guys.
Yeah!
Well,
It's time to unite. We need to get our numbers up and show them how big we really are.
the numbers game. That's important. Linda brings up a good point. Numbers game. Now, the division. Now, anybody who's actually watched Fake Land and see what's going on there, you'll see the drama that unfolds in Facebook. And it's amazing the lies and the stuff people will actually believe. And that is what's killing us. The federal government's divide and conquer. The licensed producer agents, divide and conquer tactics, military tactics. How can they use that on a culture that works in the underground? Like, fuck, I don't get this. But it's working. I mean, we are the underground, like it or not, we're the gray area of the law. And yet they're using divide and conquer tactics on us and making us fight each other while they corner the market so we can buy from them. I don't know if y'all grew up on the streets like I did, but that's not how drug dealing works. So, so, yeah. And these smoking laws, I believe, are another thing. I'll be glad when I hear back from John because I hope to speak at Peterborough. If any of you can make it out there, I hope to speak at Peterborough about this particular topic with lawyers' advice. Right now, I'm just speaking about it from my own opinion and from what I've read and been able to ascertain from it. My friends, Michael, I hope you keep your door open. I really do, but I also understand the risk that comes with that. And for the other people that want to pop one open, let's do that. Let's look at how we can come together. Most importantly, let's stay in touch because the coalition proved what 2,800 registered patients can do when they fought together. They raised $300,000 and took down the federal government's monopoly that would have you guys all buying from shoppers today if it wasn't for it.
Yeah!
Most importantly, exactly, we need to stay together, and that divide and conquer, watch for it, because my friends, the guys in the suits, the guys that aren't from our culture, the people that just tried to take my company is a good example. I'm not really able to talk about them because my lawyers asked me not to, fucking dickheads. Anyway, they tried to take my company, and it's just an example. I'm just a little medical patient with a little small media company, and somebody can try to pass you over. And in law, that's where somebody just comes in and trademarks your shit and says, go ahead and come up with 10 grand and prove that it's not my shit. And that's how it works in corporate law. My point is here is it's not just licensed producers that we have to worry about. Right down here to the smallest brand, if you're in the cannabis culture, you need to be alert to what's going on, because you have to say, what are you going to tell your grandkids? What are your kids going to tell their kids, etc., about what you did at this time when they were legalizing in the country of Canada? What did you do about the future of this country in relation to legalization of cannabis? We've been fighting all these years. Now we're going to legalize, but are we just going to let corporate business take over? Or are we going to kick up dust and like the Americans would and fight for a free and democratic society and a free and democratic market? Yeah. On that note, I love you all, and I came out here honestly just for that point. I love coming here, and thanks, Michael. Just running out of breath.
Well done. Well done, man.
Thanks, brother.
Well done. Well done.
Really hope you stay open here. I know it's well
These are my people. These are your people. These are our people. This is our community.